Joe Scarborough is giving us kind of an early Christmas gift today. That's very nice. Thanks, Joe. Sorry, Morning Mika. Morning Mika now. You know, it's really fun to watch. I tuned into a couple of the opposed Trump networks this morning just to have some fun. And we're seeing the economy, of course, soar. We're seeing the best retail season we've had in years being recorded. We see this tax bill is obviously going to get signed into law before the end of the year, for Christmas. And we see ISIS smashed in Syria and beyond. And it's fun to tune in to the Oppo Trump networks because they are loath to talk about anything that is good that is happening in America. Because if they do speak about anything that is good and positive and optimistic that's happening in our country, lo and behold, you have to give Donald Trump just probably a little bit of credit. You can't totally ignore the fact that he's president of the United States. But they're going to like a Jesse Waters weekend show to reach to there will be violence in the streets. This coming from a network that is so hesitant to criticize the truly violent groups out there, such as Black Lives Matter and these Antifa people who have destroyed millions of dollars worth of property and worked to shut down free speech across the United States. How many breathless segments did Morning Joe do about the Dartmouth professor who wrote the book about Antifa? Encouraging violence. Did they happen to see what happened at Berkeley? Encouraging violence? Did they see what happened in the wake of Freddie Gray and what happened during the Michael Brown fiasco in St. Louis and beyond, and all of the torchings of block after block on spurious grounds, having fomented themselves, by the way, fomented these false narratives day after day after day to indicate that most of the cops there are racist, most of the law enforcement has a tin ear when it comes to racial issues, and essentially in much of their reporting, empathizing with those who were turning over police cars, looting, burning, and terrorizing entire communities and destroying small businesses and communities. And now they're coming out and saying, oh, the Republicans are encouraging. Oh, please. What is being discussed is very important. Namely, how absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it used to be, the Democrats used to be the party that was distrustful of big law enforcement, heavy-handed law enforcement, forcing people into plea deals. They're all for criminal justice reform, right? They're all very critical of law enforcement. But then when the Republicans come forward and say, well, the FBI, we got some problems here. We got not the rank and file people. The rank and file people, I happen to just know a lot of FBI men and women, and I've gotten to know them over the years in a variety of contexts. I mean, and the ones I know are just awesome people. They're good friends. So it's fun to talk to them about this controversy because they're like, look, we're conservative. We can't even put up a yard sign during political election seasons. And then former national spokesman of the FBI said that on the Ingraham angle on Friday night, which I actually did not know until a couple of weeks ago. And he reiterated it on Friday and said, not only you can't send these types of texts around, you can't put up a lawn sign. You are not supposed to have publicly expressed views of, political, support one way or another. You are calling balls and strikes on the rule of law, period. That's what you do. You're an agent of the FBI, and you are not a political pundit. And so the Democrats and their sympathizers have been trashing good law enforcement for years, unfairly, I might add, and urging these consent decrees on law enforcement in Oakland and Chicago and St. Louis and all over the United States, Cleveland, these consent decrees where they monitor the police and they they essentially force the police to go into this entire diversity mentality, all their, racial healing training and all the stuff they have to do. And now they come forward and they criticize people who say, maybe it's not a good idea to have Obama and Clinton loyalists investigating Donald Trump. Maybe that looks like, to a lot of people just on the outside, as the fix was in from the beginning. If you're going to assemble a team that is infected with Obama and Clinton loyalists, not just people who voted for them, but people who worked for them, and people who represented the Clinton Foundation, like Jeannie Rhee, and people who represented Ben Rhodes, and people like Andrew Weissman. All of these individuals taint the ultimate product of the investigation. Now, truth be told, Peter Strzok, who was removed from his duties in July, he actually was the lead interviewer of Michael Flynn, the former national security advisor for Trump, who was relieved of his position last February. Now, he came away from that interview with Flynn thinking Flynn was not lying. Very interesting. So he may have actually done a pretty good job on that interview. I don't know. See, I actually have a sense, and it's my old criminal defense posture that I have right here, that Mike Flynn did not lie to the FBI in that interview. First of all, he had no obligation to be interviewed by the FBI. For the life of me, I don't understand why he even agreed to an interview. But he did. And I think he did because he thought he had nothing to hide. But you know what he didn't want? He didn't want to spend the rest of his days on Earth defending himself, living in bankruptcy, and seeing his family's name dragged through the mud. That's what a lot of people do in this situation. They plead because they have unlimited resources, they have unlimited staff, and they will indict you for something, and probably something more severe and serious, than you're pleading to. But the idea that criticizing the FBI is now verboten. Well, what have they been doing in law enforcement all across the country? And by the way, I'll tell you how the Democrats have criticized the FBI over the years tonight on the Ingraham angle. And when people say coup, it's because it looks like in these text messages that we discovered between Strzok and the girlfriend, Lisa Page, also working in the FBI, also high up in the FBI, that they were talking about having an insurance policy so Trump would never get elected. Now, I found that beyond creepy. Two high-ranking FBI investigators who were involved in everything from the Hillary email investigation to, it looks like, the obviously the Russia investigation, but perhaps the FISA warrant filing, Cheryl Mills interview, the Hillary interview, that they were talking in Andrew McCabe's office, the deputy FBI director, who also needs to be relieved from his duties. I said that on Friday, about whether Trump would get elected or not, and now we needed an insurance policy. Now, what's that mean? If that doesn't sound like an internal plot to deny Trump the presidency because you make it look so bad for him, whether it's a FISA warrant or you're listening in on conversations during before the election, you're using a fake dossier that Bruce Orr, also working for the FBI, his wife works for Fusion GPS, Nellie Orr. They end up paying for this thing. They meet with Chris Steele. They meet with these individuals, and they use that to go to the FISA court and say, let's monitor. Way beyond Carter Page. Let's keep it going. So that's why I imagine Jesse Waters said that. But I just love the MSNBC. Well, there's going to be violence in the streets. Well, when's the last time they actually criticized violence in the streets? Did they really criticize Madonna saying we're going to blow up the White House? They criticize the vicious rhetoric coming from the Women's March. Well, how about other people saying that Donald Trump deserves to be, quote, removed from office? What does that mean? What does that mean? I mean, I don't ever hear them criticizing that. That sounds like a coup. Removing the president from office by any means necessary. You're listening to your Healthy Radio Addiction, 855-40-LAURA. We have a lot to get to, and we're going to have a phenomenal show tonight. You're not going to want to miss it. It turns out that Lisa Bloom, Gloria Allred's daughter, was paying people to testify that they had been harassed by Donald Trump, offering as much, by the way, as $750,000 from apparently donors who are willing to pony up. And one woman actually got her mortgage paid off in Queens, $30,000. Another got cold feet at the end. We're going to be examining the campaign finance ramifications of this scheme and whether, if two or more people are conspiring together with lots of money changing hands, whether they had an obligation to register as a political action committee, and whether the super PACs that may have been funding this effort, even if in some cases it wasn't successful, funding this effort also violated campaign finance law because of, what do you think, disclosure issues. And I have a question. Did any of these women, the women who got the money for appearance fees, was this tax-free? They declare that on their taxes? How'd they declare that income? So there's tax implication, obviously ethical implications, and campaign finance implications. Potential mail fraud, wire fraud. Well, definitely worth an investigation. But did they discuss this at all on Morning Joe today? Or I was watching CNN for a time. I didn't hear anything. As the GOP is poised to pass tax reform this week. 855-40-LAURA. We have a lot more to get to on your Healthy Radio Addiction. And the Never Trumpers are having a miserable time at the end of this year because, of course, they're just, you know what I think they're hoping for now is that the economy crashes. That's the only thing I think they can hope for Mueller to pull a rabbit out of his hat or for the economy to crash. Other than that, I'm not, they're going to do their get out the vote effort for sure. But in the end, Donald Trump has to barnstorm the country, keep people happy, leave the politics of anger behind, and continue to build the momentum for this agenda, coast to coast, not just in places that like you, but in places, in localities, towns, cities, where they're very critical, even hostile to Donald Trump. He needs to start doing that in the new year. No doubt about it. Got to get those numbers up.
Government handouts are everywhere, and people and institutions who claim to love independence sometimes are all too glad to take those handouts. It's disgusting that our system takes money from good people like you and then turns around and gives it to liberal colleges and a million other stupid things. Colleges are all too eager to grab the cash and do whatever it takes to keep the money flowing in. All colleges except one. I'm talking about Hillsdale College. Hillsdale doesn't take 1 penny of government money. Well, why is that? Because Hillsdale refuses to let government bureaucrats dictate what they must do and teach. Everything Hillsdale does, from the financial aid that 97% of its students receive to the free online courses it offers you, depends on people who choose to donate to help train a new generation of principled leaders. No matter what they major in, Hillsdale College teaches everything we need in a truly virtuous and free society. And by the way, at Hillsdale, their free online Constitution courses are teaching millions of Americans the same principles. Learn how you can help Hillsdale further freedom at lauraforhillsdale.com.
John Heilman, who last time I checked wasn't able to remember or keep track of any alleged sexual harassment by his former Game Change partner, Mark Halperin. 855-40-LAURA. So now the Carolina Panthers owner is stepping aside, 81 years old. He's been the original franchise owner, right? And so he's putting the team up for sale. Some of the I've got to say, I got to pull it up, but some of the accusations against I don't know, obviously. I don't know what happened. But I do... Some of these accusations are... What, he wanted to watch women shave their legs? Was that... Or did he want his legs shaved? That doesn't even make sense. First of all, why is that something interesting to watch? That's my first reaction. Why is that? He's 81 years old. So he resigns. Danny Morrison, yeah. But he doesn't say anything about the allegations. He just said he'll be their number one fan, and he's team president. So what's his name? The Panthers owner?
Jerry Richardson.
Okay. Every day, it's like you can't wake up. Every day you wake up and there's another man in a position of power either resigning or responding to allegations. Well, things can be worse. You could have been stuck at the Atlanta airport over the weekend. Oh, Mike. First of all, do you see all the people with their cell phones illuminated trying to rebook their flights? That was a nightmare. They closed the whole airport down for the whole day. The fact that can happen in the United States of America in and of itself is a problem. Do they know why it happened yet? Why they lost all the power? It's one of the biggest stories, grid stories of the last year.
Could you imagine if it had happened just a few days from now when everyone's leaving for Christmas?
Well, no, this was one of the biggest travel days because a lot of people are taking this week off. A lot of people are taking this week off and a couple days next week. Other people take between Christmas and New Year's off, but a lot of people are traveling on Sunday. It was a horrible day for it to happen. Any of you in that airport, oh my God, if you were in the airport or affected by it, I really want to hear from you. Travel horror stories are so entertaining. Sorry, your pain is... You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, and we are doing our all-out push this week for our friends at Food for the Poor. A lot of you are doing your year-end giving, and I urge you to give money to an organization that gets help directly to those who need it so badly. 17 countries, children who are malnourished and lacking in basic medical care and sustainability. You'll just be amazed at what even a small contribution can do to help a family in need. And it's what we're called to do as Christians. It's what we're called to do as human beings who care and have so many blessings here in this country. So whether it's $50 or $250, or if you're someone who's been really blessed, $2,500, I'm looking for $10, $2,500 donors today. You get a special gift package from me, signed books, and a special note. And you'll feed and give clean water to children and families who are just desperate for help. Again, you just go to lauraingraham.com or lifezet.com and you'll see the banner there. Click on that and you can help a suffering child. Again, you can call them at 844-868-4673. That's 844-868-4673. Or go to lauraingraham.com. Food for the poor this Christmas. Wolf Blitzer with Mark Short from the White House. The Oppo media have spent the last 72 hours essentially blasting Fox News. How dare Fox News call into question any action by the FBI? Oh, you're undermining the FBI. Well, as if the Democrats have never questioned law enforcement across the United States. Isn't that the whole point of all these protests all across the country? I mean, have they really unpacked Antifa over there at CNN? Colin Kaepernick is essentially on Mount Rushmore if you're a CNN anchor. The whole thing is about law enforcement. How law enforcement is corrupt to the core. They're all racist. But now you question the members of the team of the Mueller investigation who are political partisans or formerly worked for either Obama or Clinton. And you're fomenting violence against the FBI. I guess it's a question of whose ox is being gored here. Joining us now, I'm delighted he's with us, Andy McCarthy, National Review judicial writer, former assistant U.S. attorney, and we're delighted he's with us now. Andy, great to talk to you. You have a lot to go through here, and your writings have become indispensable reading on the Mueller investigation.
Thanks so much, Laura.
And absolutely. And the first thing I want to ask you about, before we get into the question of whether they were allowed to take these emails, the investigation to take control of the emails of the transition. First question I have is about the Lisa Bloom payments and offer of payments to these alleged Trump accusers before Election Day in 2016. We learned that one woman had her mortgage paid off, that appearance fees were sought by Lisa Bloom for her clients, which in and of itself might not be a big deal, but that she dangled as much as $750,000 to one woman in particular, and apparently it was going to be paid for by Trump donors, Obama, Clinton donors, or Clinton-friendly PACs. Given the facts that we know now, couldn't there be serious campaign finance law implications here?
Yeah, I think so. As a prosecutor, I'd want to look at it as to see if there's any basis for extortion charges. Probably not, but certainly the campaign finance laws, since this is effectively what these arrangements seem to be, would be something you'd examine it under. And obviously, I think, as a fact matter, people are apt to dismiss this sort of stuff when it looks like it's being wrung from people in such a heavy-handed way where there's so much financial consideration to it. But it certainly underscores the rabidness with which they're trying to get to this president.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of money. I guess at one point the woman's like, I want $2 million. And they said, well, we're not going to go up there. Then they kind of kept upping their offer to her. And it looked like that wealthy donors were willing to pony this money up. Obviously not Lisa Bloom herself. That wouldn't make any sense. But if they're actually working with more than two people together to influence the outcome of an election, they had to disclose that. That's a disclosure requirement under campaign finance law. And apparently none of that was done.
No, and look, I think it really shows that they for all the people who say, the potential impeachment of Trump hinges, or when I say impeachment now, I should be clear that I mean filing articles of impeachment. I don't think they'll ever be able to remove Trump unless something, is exposed that none of us can conceive of right now. But I don't think it hinges on what Mueller finds at all. I think that the Democrats, and in particular their base, are determined to impeach this president, almost as if it's like point of honor is probably the wrong way to put it with people like this. But I think they're still so bent out of shape over Clinton being impeached and they so despise Trump that they want to hang that on him. And they're determined to do it. And if they flip the House, they're going to do it.
Well, one thing that came up, of course, on Saturday, I guess, was when the Mueller team, it was revealed, had a treasure trove of 10,000 emails that they got from the GSA, the General Services Administration, from the transition. Now, the transition, there were like top officials, maybe 13, 14 officials, emails were turned over, and they say that was improper. What are your thoughts on that?
Right. Well, my main thought, Laura, is that, we've talked before about how extraordinarily large this prosecution team is. Mm-hmm. To me, inexplicably large, like 5 times larger than anything I ever worked on, and I worked on some pretty important stuff. But they said that they needed these resources so that, like, when the complexities of investigating a presidential campaign, foreign intrigue, when all that stuff came up, they'd have resources to throw at it. And it seems to me that far from going through these complicated situations with, the due professional care, they're like a bull in a china shop. So, with Manafort, when they could pick up the phone and call the lawyer and say, we'd like these documents, instead they do a pre-dawn raid at gunpoint. And here, where the normal, professional, honorable thing would be, you pick up the phone and call the transitions lawyers, or you pick up the phone and call Trump's lawyers and say, we want to look at the transition documents. And then they get to say, okay, well, there's some stuff you're entitled to, but there's some stuff we want to claim privilege about. And then you go to court and you hash that out. Instead, what they did was they went to a third party and, whatever imbeciles they got there, just gave them everything. And there was no consideration whatsoever either on their end, that at GSA, or apparently on Mueller's end, that if you're going to take a big tranche of documents like this, you have to have a tank team, and they have to go through it to make sure that you're not violating attorney-client privilege and any other privilege. I mean, that's the careful way you go about this stuff. And if they're not doing that, what I'd like to know is, why do they need 17 lawyers? What are they doing over there?
Are you surprised that there hasn't been more out of this investigation, given the quote dream team that we heard of. But this team is like F. Lee Bailey, Brendan Sullivan. It's like the most incredible team ever. You surprised there's not more?
Well, I mean, if there's nothing there, there's nothing there. They could have the greatest lawyers on planet Earth. If they don't have a crime, they don't have a crime. And, you know, I've always thought that they called this thing collusion because that sounds like a dark term, but It's not a crime. You know, collusion is just, it's concerted activity. They need conspiracy. And I think if they had a conspiracy, we'd have heard about it by now. And no matter the atmospherics, when you look at what they've done so far and the three sets of charges that they've put out, the stuff on Manafort is clearly designed to squeeze him to see if he has anything, but so far they haven't gotten anything from him. And then you have Flynn and Papadopoulos, where collusion, as it were, pours off every page of what they described. You know, they're having meetings with Russia. Maybe we'll get Trump together with Putin. We're talking about, policy with Russia, et cetera. And then they ultimately plead them to what? To lying to the FBI, a process crime in the investigation. And that's because collusion is not a crime, you know? So they can have, F. Lee Bailey times 17. But if there's nothing there, there's nothing there.
We're talking to Andy McCarthy of National Review. His latest piece was the Steele dossier used to obtain a FISA warrant against Trump's campaign, which we've posted on lauraingraham.com. Andy, if I were a betting person, and when I bet I usually don't win, so I don't bet, but if I were, I'd still go ahead and bet the answer to that question is yes, just because of the Bruce Orr connection. And everybody remembers he was also hovering around in the FBI. His wife worked for Fusion GPS, and then we had the meeting with Christopher Steele's guy, what's his name, Williams, and I mean, it's just, I mean, if they didn't use it, you almost wonder why didn't they use it at this point, because it looks so bad.
Yeah, well, here's the one question. If I could ask one question of these guys and then make a bet on account of it, here's what I would home in on. Because we know that they got a FISA warrant for Carter Page. And because Page is an American citizen, it's not enough under FISA law to merely show that he was acting as an agent of a foreign power, in this case, Russia. Now, I'm not saying that he was. I'm just saying this is what the allegation was, right? You have to also show that his activities either were in violation or could be in violation of American criminal statutes. Now, the only stuff, I've looked at a lot of stuff on Page, and I am the first to admit that the FBI knows a lot more than I do, but the only stuff I've ever seen on Carter Page that was arguably criminal is what's in the dossier. So if they represented to the FISA court both that this guy was acting as an agent of a foreign power and that his activities might be violations of federal criminal statutes, I don't see how they didn't use the dossier.
Is it unusual for the FBI to have paid money for something like this, if they did?
It's not unusual to pay money for information. I mean, you have to ultimately disclose it. It would be highly irregular, to my mind, if they paid money knowing that Steele was somehow getting paid by the Clinton campaign. So that's another circle we have to close. I don't know what the FBI knew when they were dealing with Steele. I don't even know what Steele knew about what Steele was getting, who was paying Steele.
Do you think the House, was it the House Judiciary Committee or House Intel Committee, excuse me?
The Intel
Committee would be wise to be interviewing Lisa Page or Peter Strzok? Or, I mean, aren't these people going to be interviewed at some point?
Yeah, I think they're, in fact, where we're at now, as I understand it, is whether people start to get held in contempt for withholding these witnesses and withholding other information. So, yes, absolutely. I think they have to be interviewed.
If you had to rate Jeff Sessions from a scale of 1 to 10 and his role as the Attorney General of the United States, just as it goes on these kinds of issues. How would you rate his performance?
Well, I give him a 1 on how he's performed in connection with the Russia stuff, which is a disappointment to me because I give him close to 10 on everything else that he's doing as Attorney General. I think across the board he's doing some really fabulous work, but I think on this one, which turns out to be so important not only to the president but to people's overall impression of the administration, I think his recusal on Russia was way too broad, and as a result, it's called into question. At least it evidently called into question in his mind how much he could participate in a lot of stuff that's gone on that shouldn't have gone on, including giving Mueller a warrant to investigate this thing that has absolutely no limits and that has become just the fishing expedition that people like me complained it was going to be at the beginning.
You complained from you sent up the red flare right away, and I said, I'm sorry, but you should never have recused yourself. It just because now people say, "Can you fire Andrew McCabe?" Well, he'll probably say, "I can't fire Andrew McCabe because it has something to do with the Russia," which is ridiculous. He's the Attorney General of the United States. He should be able to fire the Deputy Director of the FBI. So, but now he's kind of, it's a hot potato. I can't touch anything. It's preposterous. Andy, loved your column. Hope you come back on the Angle soon. Great to talk to you. If we don't, have a Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you in the new year.
You too, Laura. Thanks.
All right. We'll take a break. We'll close out this hour. We have a lot on tap. Oh, boy, this is a good show. And our friends in California, Santa Barbara, that fire is so bad. Our prayers are out to you, your family, your property, the animals, wildlife, all of it. We're praying for you. I think we're going to be learning more and more about the ill-advised way Bob Mueller decided to grab those emails and not filter through them. I wonder why. You're listening to The Laura Ingraham Show. A lot on tap tonight on the Ingraham Angle. Tune in 10 p.m. Eastern. You are listening to The Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Wow. Going back and listening to the left, predicting that Trump was somehow backing down on what he thought about China and what a threat China had become to the United States of America in trade cheating and stealing our intellectual property, all the rest. When he did that big Asia tour, the commentary was just over the top. And what did I say to you at the time? I said, just watch. Just watch what happens post-trip. I had interviewed Bob Lighthizer before they left on the trip, and he's the U.S. trade representative. And he is the man when it comes to exposing what's happened at the World Trade Organization, an organization where litigation against China results in usually China saying, yeah, sure, and then going back and doing the same thing all over again. Even when a judgment is ultimately received against China's cheating, we rarely get expeditious satisfaction, or if the satisfaction we do get is not enough. And so, of course, Bob Lighthizer and the whole trade crew are awesome. They are just exposing and reorienting U.S. trade posture and demanding that real market economy status not be given to China, given the evidence against them. Now, if they get a market economy status, it sounds kind of wonky, but they're in a much stronger position than they already are right now in trade. So we say, we're officially against their getting market economy status. That was a huge move, and that all happened after the trip. But now we're learning more. Trump's big speech today on his national security outlook for the upcoming year will have an emphasis on confronting both unfair trade practices and precluding rivals from stealing American technology, and it holds potentially far-reaching implications for relations with China, which is described as a revisionist power that is seeking to undermine U.S. security and prosperity. Russia is portrayed as a dangerous rival that's trying to restore its status as a great power, establish spheres of influence by dividing the U.S. from its allies. China and Russia challenge American power, influence, and interest, states the 67-page strategy, which has just been released. And Trump plans to formally unveil all of this afternoon. They're determined to make economies less free, less fair, to grow their militaries, and to control information and data, to repress their societies and expand their influence. What is CNN going to say about this now? Now, are they going to defend China? By the way, there was a huge piece, and excuse me for not having it at my fingertips, but I will find it. There's a huge piece that came out over the weekend. James, maybe you can find it. Maybe I posted it. I can't. I'm sorry, but I have 50,000 things in my mind. Suffice it to say, we'll get into it. But it documents how China is systematically pulling these Muslims, these Chinese Muslims called Uyghurs, out of their homes and sending them to camps. These like re-education camps. They call them something else. Repatriation camps, where people are just disappear from their homes. And it's one more example of how the globalists had predicted China was going to get freer and more open as it became richer. Remember all those predictions? Well, that's all out the window now. Now, that's obvious. China is not becoming freer. And even some of the old China enthusiasts have to admit that now. There was another piece over the weekend that came out about that. Now, can we all just now admit that China's not becoming freer? So for all of the left's concern raised about Russia and Putin, let's not forget that Russia has an economy that's smaller than France's. Okay? It's a small economy. Still dangerous, obviously, because of nuclear weapons. No, not in any way minimizing that. It's a small economy. China's is massive. Russia, a country that is demographically shrinking because of birth rate. We have to watch out for that ourselves here in the United States as our birth rate is falling. But in China, they also have that issue as well, which they're trying to remedy now. But China's economy growing. But Trump addresses both of them today in this speech. And I just can't wait to see the left's reaction here. Are they going to stand up to... Are they going to say Trump's still sucking up to Russia? I don't... See, I actually wouldn't... This is where I wonder if the investigation is at all coloring how they do these reports. Because I would not put Russia and China in the same category just because the size is so drastically different and it's a different dynamic. I don't think you can put both of them in the same. And also, you don't want to drive them into each other's arms, which I also think is a mistake. Putin is obviously a bad guy. We have some common interests. We have some common interests with China. Maybe we can work with them on some things. Maybe we can't. But the idea that Russia is as big a threat as China, I'm sorry, I'm going to laugh at that all day long. So I don't buy that. But that's what Trump's going to argue and put them both in the same basket this afternoon. And meanwhile, Putin called him because I guess our CIA gave them a tip that prevented a bombing in St. Petersburg. So Putin called Trump yesterday and thanked him for the intelligence. We definitely want to share intelligence when it comes to the Islamic threat. And remember how Russia warned us about those Tsarnaev brothers? They sent a warning to us about the radicalization that was taking place in Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Dagestan, and for some reason we didn't really seem to listen to that. But again, I just don't go. All these people saying Trump hasn't had a substantive year of changing U.S. Posture in the world, and I think for the better. We have a clearer understanding of things now when it comes to our trade position. We have a much clearer position.
I wish previous administrations in my country saw what was happening and did something about it. They did not, but I will. From this day forward, we will compete on a fair and equal basis. We are not going to let the United States be taken advantage of anymore. I am always going to put America first, the same way that I expect all of you in this room to put your countries first.
Well, and that was in Vietnam. That was right on the heels of that China trip. And this will continue. By the way, there are 34 Republicans, including Scott Taylor of Virginia, moving on to another issue, which I want your input on, pushing for amnesty for the DACA recipients, the 800,000, quote, kids, some of them now as old as 35, brought here as minors. And these 34 Republicans want this done by the end of the year. Do you think this should be a GOP priority at the end of the year? And if the Democrats threaten to shut down the government over this issue, do you think the Republicans should allow them to shut down over this issue? In other words, don't cave. I would not cave at all. I would go to the American people and say the Democrats, they're not as concerned about making sure that individuals get their checks from the military or security. They're more concerned with illegal immigrants than they are concerned with your well-being. They want to throw our whole government into chaos because they demand illegal immigrants get this special status here in the United States without agreeing to cuts in immigration, without agreeing to ending chain migration, without agreeing to ending the lottery system or the E-Verify. What the Democrats want is a clean DACA amnesty. And they believe by hook or by crook they can get it. They can pressure this administration to get it. I've heard hints that the Trump administration might be open to some DACA fix before the end of the year. I certainly hope that is not the case. You're just hitting your stride now. You got tax reform done. We'll get into the details of why this is going to be good for you. Get tax reform done. Mueller is on the defensive. This deregulatory push has been so successful. You've gotten 12 great circuit court judges confirmed. You've had a couple of whiffs on the district court judges. That guy last week was an embarrassment. Never should have been nominated. The FEC lawyer, Peterson, I mean, he was just, that was a nightmare. You ever tried a case? No. You ever done a deposition? No. And then I love the question, you ever done a deposition by yourself? He just said he never did a deposition. Why are you asking him the next embarrassing question? That guy should never have been nominated by the president. That's embarrassing to the president. And the White House counsel's office, Don McGahn, they work together. They're kind of pals. No way. Can't do that to the district court. That's a big mistake. That embarrasses President Trump. I didn't like that at all.
Have you ever tried a jury trial?
I have not.
Civil?
No.
Criminal?
No.
Bench?
No, I can't hear it. It's too painful. Too painful. He's got to be withdrawn. That name's got to be withdrawn. And it put him in a terrible position. It put him in an awful position. Terrible. Can't do that. So putting him aside and maybe one or two others, there have been great judges. You're not going to bat 1,000, okay? You're not going to bat 1,000. Pretty Boy pulled out the victory, I heard last night, right? Yesterday?
By hook or by crook, controversial calls at the end that got him the victory.
Yeah, I heard that they gave him a little early Christmas gift.
They always seem to be getting Christmas gifts.
Yeah, Pretty Boy is pretty lucky. He's been pretty lucky. He's a phenomenal quarterback, but he's also gotten some really big breaks this year, no doubt about it. Are the Panthers are they going to be in the Super Bowl? They hope to be, right?
They're in the hunt, but
Yeah.
they're working on it.
Now people will now say really root against them because of the allegations. They are only allegations, but allegations against the owner of the team, and he's now selling the team. Boy, just allegations, and I don't own this anymore. It's amazing. Still get a lot of money for it though. This DACA thing, I'm telling you, this will be demoralizing to the base of the party. If they do a DACA fix, that's 800,000 new Democrat voters. You tell me how you're going to win presidential elections. Maybe 790,000 Democrat voters. And then all their parents, do they get to stay too? And if they get to stay, do you think they're going to be Republican, Adam Smith conservatives? I mean, what kind of conservatives are they going to be? Well, last time I checked, the law and order people are the ones who tend to be more conservative, and the ones who skirt the laws tend to be more Democrats. Not 100%, but we'll take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show. 855-40-LAURA. Now, Senator Manchin saying Al Franken should reconsider his resignation. What did I predict? That Al Franken might change his mind? Is that even possible at this point? Some Democrats saying, well, he still should resign. Others saying, no, he shouldn't. But we'll talk about that. 855-40-LAURA. Do you think Al Franken will actually resign? And will it be a kick in the stomach to you if the Trump administration caves to Democrats on the so-called DACA fix, a.k.a. amnesty? Don't go away.
The Laura Ingraham Show.
Guys, wouldn't your wife or girlfriend love it if you treated her to the very best at Christmas? Well, guess what? You can. And it's easy. We're talking about the world's softest, most comfortable pajamas, available exclusively at pajamagram.com. That's pajamagram.com. Remember it. They're created by a team of dedicated pajama experts. The world's softest PJs are lighter than a cloud and softer than a bunny. And they really are because, well, I have just a few pair in my drawer. And they're really cool. They feel like cashmere, but there's no itchy feeling. They're just great. They're warm, they're cuddly, and you're going to sleep better. You'll love the way they look. They feel great, and more than a gift, they're a feeling. And it's cuddly and cozy, an invitation for that special someone to just relax a little bit longer. The world's softest pajamas are available only at pajamagram.com. Visit today and surprise her with something she's really going to love all year long. Plus, you don't even have to wrap because every Pajamagram includes free gift packaging and Christmas delivery is guaranteed. So go to pajamagram.com or call them at 1-800-GIVE-PJs and tell them Laura Ingraham sent you. You've heard me talk this past year about how much my pillow has helped me have a better night's sleep. Oh, I tossed and turned all night and I never felt fully rested, but that changed once I discovered My Pillow. It's the holiday season. There's no better time than to buy a My Pillow for yourself or your friends and family. They make a great holiday gift, a great hostess gift, a great gift, period. And it's not only pillows that they make. They have incredible sheets and they even have dog beds that pets love. And of course, it's all manufactured right here in the United States and comes with a 10-year warranty. You can wash and dry My Pillow, and the best part is you get a 60-day money-back guarantee, so you have nothing to lose. Go to MyPillow.com or call them at 800-385-5164 and use the promo code LAURA to take advantage of my special buy one, get one free savings. It's the holiday season. There's no better time than to buy a My Pillow for yourself or your friends and family. So again, go to MyPillow.com or call 800-385-5164 and use the promo code LAURA to take advantage of the buy one, get one free savings. I think the witch hunt mentality against men is, in general, just completely out of control. I've said this on Fox. I'm probably one of the few women who's been saying this, and I'm sure I'm opening myself up to tons of criticism. But I just think it is unfair to say an allegation alone, many from years ago, before you were even in the Senate, should disqualify you from continuing to serve your term that the people of Minnesota elected you to. If the people want to vote him out of office, vote him out of office. But forcing people to resign before they have an opportunity to clear their name or attempt to clear, I just find it all to be like a star chamber. I don't like it. And I know there are creeps out there and people like Harvey Weinstein and others, but I just think in general it has to be more than women who are, upset about things that happened, and some of them, now we found out with Lisa Bloom getting paid. Not saying the Franken people got paid, but do you agree with me that this is just now, it's every day there's something else. Every single day. I don't know at this point whether women are going to understand the implications of where this is going. You might think Me Too movement is so great, so great. Well, now we have a woman in Kansas City, a Democrat from Emily's list, who has resigned, stepped aside, who was running for Congress. She's stepping aside a Democrat accused by a male colleague of sexual harassment. I said the tables were going to be turned on women, and lo and behold, the tables are being turned on women. Totally being turned on women. And look, a disgruntled employee can allege anything. Sometimes the allegations are true, sometimes they're not true. But they can allege anything. And they're disgruntled. They didn't get what they wanted. Maybe there was a consensual relationship. Then it went south. Then it didn't. Well, that's the game women think is fair at this point. Then I guess we're going to have to see where this all leads. But you're going to probably lead with fewer women being hired, or maybe all female companies and all male companies. And people segregate themselves. But I find all of this to be, I just find it to be wrong. And maybe it's my old criminal defense side of me coming out. I don't know, but I just don't like any of this. We have a lot more to get to. We'll get to all your calls, and Eli Lake will stop by. We'll talk to him and a lot more. Don't go away. This week for Chamonix's Christmas and holiday sale, and the countdown continues, introducing the brand new Genucel treatment for droopy eyelids. You don't want to have those droopy eyelids, and folks who try the droopy eyelid treatment, I know you see the skin looking brighter, tighter, and it's about time. You don't want to suffer with those, and there's no need to. All those little fine, saggy lines, they can be minimized, diminished, if you have the right skincare treatment, and Genucel is it. You also, when you order that Genucel for bags and puffiness under your eyes, you get the eyelid treatment. It's breakthrough for free. It's fantastic. You go to Genucel.com. That's GENUCEL.com. Or you call them at 800-480-5206. And you just order that up. It gets better, by the way. You order in the next 20 minutes, you get 2 more classics, the Collagen Builder and the Deep Firming Serum, absolutely free. You call or click in the next 10 minutes, and you get the Essence, the neck treatment, express shipping, also free. And by the way, it's guaranteed Christmas delivery. Love it. You get 6 free gifts. Again, Genucel.com, or call them 800-480-5206. In American history, last week, in his column, worst president ever in history. Yeah, okay. Even said that. What was Mueller thinking? Now it turns out that Mueller's team went to the General Services Administration, got 10,000 transition team emails, and as Andy McCarthy just pointed out on the show, failed to do what any investigation of this size would do with all these people they have working for them, which is to cull through the emails. So emails that have either attorney-client privilege matters, or other sensitive non-Russia related issues would be excluded. But that's not how they did it. They just took all of them. And the Trump team, of course, raising all sorts of ruckus about that. We're going to continue to take your calls also about this news I hear that the Trump administration could be considering some type of amnesty before the end of the year. Had wool pulled over their eyes by Scott Taylor of Virginia, 2nd District of Virginia, who on this issue, I'm sorry, I know he's a former Navy SEAL. You can be a former Navy SEAL or even a former POW, and I can have questions of what you're saying. But I think it's insane to do that. That is not what Trump was elected to do. Any DACA deal has to be a part of a wide-ranging bargain when it comes to the RAISE Act and all these other things that we've been talking about, not just some clean amnesty. It's crazy. I don't know why they would ever even entertain that idea, but I want to hear from you on that issue. Brian in Virginia, very quickly before we get to our next guest. Brian, go ahead.
Hi, Lord. Thank you for taking my call. The representative from Virginia, I'm guessing he's somewhere up in the Richmond area.
Scott Taylor. It's a Chesapeake,
yeah.
I think. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's the 2nd District.
Well, that would have been number 2 on the list, the Norfolk Chesapeake area. Yeah. You know what? If they need to shut the government down, I say I'm all for it. There's no way the GOP should actually have to cave into any of this. Wouldn't be like the first time they've threatened to shut the government down, and it probably won't be the last.
Hey, why be the majority? Why be in the majority? It makes no sense. Mark in Connecticut, line 3, before we go to Lake. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, I think they shouldn't even consider talking about DACA and amnesty until they solve the homeless problem in the United States, and to make sure that no veteran comes home to be homeless. How many times do you see a homeless veteran on the corner with a sign, homeless and hungry? You know, we got to fix those problems before we consider DACA and amnesty, and that's all I have to say. Thanks, Laura.
Well, you know something? There's a homeless shelter about a block and a half from Fox, and that's about 300, 400 yards to the U.S. Capitol. These are people living outside. It's a mess, total mess. We had Americans eating cans of dog food out in the street within a shadow of the Capitol. And a lot of them are veterans. Some of them have drug problems, not all of them. And if they do, let's figure that out. But I agree, we got a lot of problems in this country. And we're welcoming more and more people. Bring your whole family, aunts, uncles, cousins, everybody can come in. Yeah, set up your own mini country in our country. That is not how it works. That's supposed to be how it works. Assimilation's totally lost in this current dynamic that we have. All right, joining us now, Eli Lake from Bloomberg. We love reading him. Not always agreeing, but it's always great to have him on. Smart. A smart fellow. Is that? Can we even say the word fellow anymore, Eli? Is that even allowed in the current vernacular, politically correct vernacular? How are you?
You have to ask me about my preferred pronoun. I'm just for the record, I'm cisgender male.
Oh, okay. Got it, Eli. I'm way behind. I have to have my new lexicon here. So, Eli, let's talk globally about what's happening now with our relationship before we get into the Trump-Mueller. Trump will unveil today this new security outlook in which he names China and Russia as U.S. adversaries in a lot of ways. Obviously, they are, but he seems to do what very few other presidents have been willing to do, which is call China out for what they've done on a variety of trade issues, repression. Now we find out that they're rounding up all the Muslims, and big investigation that we read over the weekend, rounding up all these Muslims, and they're suddenly being sent to re-education camps, disappearing from families, religious persecution, etc. But what do you make of what you're reading thus far in the speech that he's going to give this afternoon?
Well, it's interesting because there's one reaction from, for lack of a better word, the sort of traditional neoconservative view, which is that Trump is saying something that he said in the UN speech, which is that we're no longer going to, sort of try to get everybody to live by our values and organize their societies according to liberal democracy. On the other hand, if he follows through with, his understanding of China, then, I think he's exposing a kind of a real hypocrisy of past presidents, which is that you did have a lot of lip service on human rights and democracy before, but you saw the expansion of this trade relationship with China and no real consequences for the Chinese in terms of the U.S. relationship for how awful they treat their population. And Trump is finally saying, wait a second, these economic, this sort of gamble that America took beginning really in the late 1980s and the early 1990s by saying we're going to try to do as much trade as we can with China and make our economies interdependent has not paid off very well for a lot of American workers and is not succeeding in making China a more liberal place and a more open society. And that's become obvious to, I think, anybody who wants to look at, the last 20 years with clear eyes. So I think that a change in strategy has been needed. But so far, if you look at the first year, because Trump campaigned on it, he has not really done anything along those lines. And at least I think he's telegraphing that now in the national security strategy. Yeah,
I think on the WTO refusing to come out in favor of giving China market economy status, that was a huge move. A wide-ranging implications. People who don't know trade law, just happens to that I'm a geek on trade law issues. That's really significant, and the overall posture that we're taking in trade meetings down in South America and talking about what the WTO actually does, which a lot of people don't understand what they actually do. I think all that's significant. But vis-a-vis Russia, Russia has an economy smaller than France's. It is a tiny fraction of the economic power that China has. Yet, of course, a nuclear power, so it's significant and potentially dangerous as well. Where do you see our relationship with Russia today? And do you believe that because of this Mueller investigation, it would be impossible right now for us to have a better relationship with Russia on the issues in which we agree?
It's to be determined. I'm inclined to agree with Andy McCarthy, who I think has been terrific on a lot of this stuff, which is that so far Mueller has not even hinted that he's going to prove the collusion charges that he was initially set out to investigate. So if Mueller's investigation morphs into something that involves unregistered foreign agents for Turkey in the case of Flynn, or all of Manafort's dealings, but doesn't really get into this collusion issue, then a lot of the preemptive charges against Trump will look hollow, and that will give him more maneuvering ability to maybe maneuver and find common cause with Russia, and he has done a little bit of that in Syria. I oppose it for other reasons. But that said, there's a lot of things, contrary to the latest column from Bret Stephens, that the Trump administration has done that has been tougher on Russia than Obama. The one that really comes to mind for me is the fact that they shut down basically their spy base in California, the San Francisco consulate. Obama had a chance to do that in that transition period when he shut down 2 other facilities for the Russians, and he didn't. That was a huge deal inside the intelligence community.
Wow.
Which I reported at the time. And the fact that the Trump administration kind of went that far to do that, and then that did prompt, if you remember, the Russians to then, sort of take their, or actually before that, the sanctions then prompted the Russians, and this was a response to that. So, Trump has shown that he's not afraid of, in certain areas, to really confront the Russians in a way more so than Obama. And also, I would point out, and it's a small matter, most of the listeners probably haven't heard of Montenegro. It's a very tiny country, but, supporting Montenegro's inclusion into NATO was bitterly opposed by the Russians, and Trump was something Trump did in the first few months. So those are some examples of things that Trump has done that has been not really, in Russia's interest. I would have liked to have seen him follow up more on the military strike Syria Act for the chemical weapons. But, so at this point, it's sort of a mixed report card. And I don't think Trump, by the way, is the notion that he just wants to give everything to Putin that he wants is wrong. I think he believes that there are, like Obama did in his first and most of his second term, that there are areas where U.S. and Russia could cooperate if...
Well, terrorism is one. I mean, we just saw them cooperate together on the St. Petersburg bombing attempt. I mean...
Right, and I saw some commentary on Twitter sort of, bemoaning all this, and I'm like, are you kidding? I mean, you don't want to help stop terrorist attacks? I mean, that's crazy. And you're talking to a major anti-Russia hawk here. I've been very critical of Putin for years, so...
Well, but here I will ask the question I've been asking for now a year and a half. Isn't it better for us, where possible, to have a better relationship with every country? I mean, with every country. It's better to have a better relationship with China, knowing who China is. Same thing with Russia, knowing what Russia is. I mean, you have to deal with other countries. I mean, maybe North Korea is an outlier here, but in Iran, we have to, but Russia and Iran aren't the same countries.
In the abstract, I think you're right, but then I point to this really brilliant Politico investigation that was released last night. Sometimes when you have a president who's intent on having a good relationship with a country like Iran, like Obama was, that led to decisions to basically shut down important intelligence law enforcement investigations into Hezbollah, the Iranian proxy in Lebanon. So it all is...
it has to be eyes wide open. I'm saying eyes wide open. Not just where we can work with you, we're going to work with you. Where we oppose you, we're going to oppose you. And I think that's what he's doing with China. We'll go over to China. We'll have these talks. We'll have the meeting. We'll bring Xi here. We'll bring him to Mar-a-Lago. But then guess what? When you're stealing our supercomputing technology, our intellectual property, when you're running aluminum through Vietnam to come to the United States, we're going to act because it's within our right in the WTO. We're not going to be pushovers, but we'll work with you where we can. I just think that's what you have to do.
Right. And there are moments when I actually think Trump is going further than that, which is that if he can convince the Chinese that you ought to want North Korea not to be a nuclear power more than us, they're your neighbor. That's where we want the Chinese to be. We want the Chinese to simultaneously fear that, Trump will take military action if they don't do anything to control their client. But on the other hand, to make it, it would be much better if the Chinese sort of dealt with the North Korea problem than us, because we've had no success. And I don't think it's in our value to get into any kind of agreement with the North Koreans, because it means us sort of being supporting, the worst prison state on the planet. It's awful. So I think it would be clarifying if the Chinese sort of said they took the lead on this one.
Absolutely. Eli, you have to come on, you can come on The Angle soon. Would you come on the TV show soon?
I would love that. And I'm sorry I couldn't do it. There's some personal things that are going on, but are we gonna disagree on Mueller?
No, and Mueller, you think the emails. I know we didn't. I got so fascinated by the Trump speech. So you think we're violating, we're out of time, but you think we're violating the agents' romantic privacy but looking at their texts? What do you think there?
My view is that it was a mistake to brief it to the press and publicize it. I don't think that they have a right to privacy from the IG of the Justice Department. It's just that when you put it out in public like that, it sets a very bad precedent. And so I was concerned about how they handled that, especially since it's an ongoing investigation from the Inspector General.
Yeah, well, Adam Schiff has a few things to answer for when it comes to leaking out of the Intel Committee as well. He's another one. That's a fair point. We love having you on. Eli Lake here on the Laura Ingraham Show. Eli, thank you. We'll check back in with you soon. We'll take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Heart skipped a beat. Why? Because the New York Times actually, in a column, someone gave Trump credit for something. Ross Douthat, he's actually a good writer. He doesn't like Trump much, but he's a Republican, I guess, but he doesn't, was a never Trumper. Anyway, he gives Trump credit for the ISIS smashing and the foreign policy. And that, look, if you had told me in late 2016 that almost a year into the Trump era, the caliphate would all but be beaten without something far worse happening in the Middle East, I would have been surprised and gratified. So very provisionally, credit belongs where it's due to our soldiers and diplomats, but yes, to our president as well.